Thanks for practicing with me. I'm Megan, and today is a practice for Malasana or squat pose. It is another request that I'm fulfilling for Gil, my Patreon. Thank you, Gil. And she commented that I had given her some options that made Malasana more comfortable for her. And the beautiful thing about Malasana or squat pose is whatever version you take, it's extremely beneficial for your digestion, for all of your joints and your legs, particularly for your feet. But it's also one of the poses that really shows where we might have restrictions. In fact, I use it as an assessment pose when I have new students come into the class. I look at them in Malasana, and that tells me a lot. So let's see if we can find out a little bit about yourself today. We're going to start by coming down onto the ground, onto our backs. Do make sure that you have a couple of blankets, a few blocks if you have them, and if you have an extra rolled up yoga mat, maybe even a chair. I'm going to show lots of different versions, and we'll end up at the wall today. But let all that go, find that stuff, pause if you need to, and come down onto your back. Place your hands on your abdomen. So with the hands on the belly, we're going to begin to feel that extension and downward motion, bringing just the left leg up towards the sky. You're going to extend through the ankle and the knee as you breathe in, and then flex the ankle or draw the top of the foot towards your shin and bring the leg towards you in a downward motion as you breathe out. Check to see that as you're doing that, you're keeping the sacrum on the floor. So when the leg comes slightly forward on the inhale, you can check sacrum stays stable, and then flex the foot and draw the leg towards you. So we want to begin to stretch the back of the leg line and also the ankle. Really, that the ankles can really hold us up in Malasana. So just doing this a few times. Keep the low back long. And we're going to change this just slightly or add on to it. Inhale into that extension. And then exhale. Draw the leg towards you. Now keep the leg towards you. Take an inhale, extend through the foot, just the foot. And then as you exhale, flex the foot and draw the knee towards your body. So that might be out to the side more. So this is where you're going to start to see where your hips are comfortable with Malasana. If you want to be out to the side more, if you want your leg more in line with your rib cage. Inhale, full extension. Take it forward so you can reground through your pelvis, the back of the pelvis. Exhale, flex the foot, draw the leg towards you. Take an inhale, just point the toe. Exhale, flex the foot, draw the thigh down towards you. So we're basically taking one leg into Malasana. And just play around. You don't have to find the same pattern of movement every time you come down. You can go more out to the side. So some of the restrictions, and they're more of restrictions of tension, you might be feeling through the back of the leg. And those are restrictions that we can work around because they're muscular restrictions, those restrictions of tension. What we really can't change is restrictions of compression. So compression is where your bones are pressing into one another. And though we all may have the same bones, they're not in the same places, particularly where the hip bone comes in. So just taking a few more of these. And then take this last position and hold it for a few breaths. You might even take one or both hands to the back of the left thigh. But watch that you're not curling your tailbone up. Gently press the tailbone down into the floor. Long spine. So like half of a happy baby here, right? You're half happy, hopefully half happy and still smiling. Keep the foot flexed because that's going to be the position in Malasana. Notice if you feel any restrictions, and are they in the front of the ankle more or in the back of the calf? So when the knee's bent, it's that deeper muscle, the soleus in the back of the calf can hold us up. Just want to hold this for a few more breaths. And then release that foot down. Take both legs out long for a moment. Shake them out. Come back into the belly breath. Notice the two sides of your body, right and left, particularly the legs, but also the pelvis itself, the low back, just sensing. We'll do the second side. So knees bent, feet on the ground. Take your right leg up. Point the toe as you breathe in. And so we want to get into full extension. So if the leg needs to be closer to the ground to do that because your hamstrings are tighter, that's okay. Full extensions, reaching. And then as you exhale, flex the foot. Draw the leg line towards your torso. Inhale into the extension, knee and ankle. Exhale, flex and draw towards you. This is a really good way to start to feel the muscles in your foot too, which are going to be really important when we're in that Malasana. See if you're making sure you're not lifting out of the pelvis, keeping the sacrum on the ground. And then we'll add that second part. So you're still going to inhale, find the full extension of the leg. Exhale, flex the foot, draw the leg towards you. Now inhale, point the toe again. Then exhale, flex the foot and draw the thigh down towards your body. Not using your hands, use your muscles. You can go out to the side more towards the rib cage, see what works. Inhale back into the extension. Exhale, flex the foot, draw the leg towards your body. Take an inhale, point the toes. Exhale, flex the foot and draw down. So something you may notice as you're doing this is that the legs want to go to two different places. One might want to go wider out to the side. The other one might want to be more to the center. So that's not only do we have differences between us in our pelvic structure, but we may have differences in our own pelvis between the two sides. Where does that leg want to go to find the most comfort? Remembering tension is that pulling of the muscles. That's okay to a degree, but not that compression of bone. Where does it feel like it's bone on bone? And see if you can stay away from that as you come to the side. And then find that final one and see if you can hang out there. So we're using the muscles to hold the leg, but if you want to take it a little deeper, you're welcome to take a hand to the back of your thigh. Watch your tailbone's not rolling up. Gently take the tailbone down. And you could still play here. Bring the leg a little more to the center line of the body or out to the side. You're also checking to see if you can keep the knee and the ankle in about the same line, so the ankle's not falling way in or way out. The ankle helps to direct how far out you want the knee. And release that. Take that leg down. Just roll your ankles around a little bit, getting them ready for more action. And we'll come up to seated. So seated, we mentioned we want to wake up the hamstrings and the low back a little bit. We're going to take the left leg out long and bring the right foot into the inner thigh. So this will help us to find the sit bones too. Just rock back and forth. Lift out of the low back. If your knee's up in the air, grab a block and put it underneath to support your knee. Flex that left foot. So draw the top of the foot towards your shin and the back of the leg line into the ground. So as we inhale, we're lifting up. We're going to take our hands up and you want to extend through your spine. As you exhale, take your hands down to your heart. Just do that a few times. Think of the inhale, press sit bones into the ground, reach up, and exhale, hands to the heart. We'll start to take that forward. Inhale, reach up. Keep that left leg line active by pressing the back of the knee into the ground or draw the kneecap up the thigh as you exhale. Gently come forward from the waist. So the hip crease down here. So I say there's the upper hinge and the lower hinge. The lower hinge is your hip crease. The up here is by the rib cage. You want to come forward from the lower hinge. Inhale and lengthen. And exhale forward. So see if you can take some of that axial extension, that long spine, taking the curves out of the spine, and bring it forward with you. Keeping the leg active. If your foot's falling out and the knee's bent, it's okay to bend the knee, but try to slightly internally rotate or point your toes up, internally rotate the thigh. Working the knee up the thigh. It's active leg. Last one coming up. And exhale forward, and just find a spot where you can hold. So for now, I want to keep the axial extension, not rounding the spine. So take your palms to the ground. As you come further into it, you can walk your hands forward, but lead from the heart and the navel center. Fold from that lower hinge at the hip crease. Little at a time, so you may be more upright. Notice we're also opening our inner right thigh for Malasana. Come back into the base of the spine, into the belly. Can you feel the expansion on the inhale? And that letting go. So what the rule of the game is, whatever's touching the ground today, every breath out, allow it to release into the ground. That's your source of support. We're not fighting it, we're releasing into it. Last breath out. Breathe in, come up. And breathe out. Hands to the heart center. We'll switch out the legs. So take the right leg out, left foot into the inner thigh. And check again. So sometimes one knee needs to be supported, the other doesn't. But if the knee's up in the air, put the block underneath it, because one of the ways we create this stability of the inner thighs, which we're going to need for Malasana, is by pushing the outer knee into a surface and then pushing the left foot into the inner thigh. Press the back of the right leg into the ground, flex the foot, just enough that you feel your muscles engage, you feel the muscles hugging the bones. Inhale, reach up. Extension, lift your side bodies. Exhale, hands to the heart. Just see how long you can make your spine. Think of sit bones go into the ground. We rise up and exhale, hands down. So that root to rise is here, rooting through your sit bones, rising through the crown of the head, through the heart. And let's begin to take it forward. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward folding from that lower hinge at the hip crease. Take it a little further as you feel fit. So exhalation is an opportunity to fall with gravity without forcing it. But at the same time, our muscles are engaged in our legs. Our spine is long, supporting us in the fold. We want to get to that point where all we really are focusing on is what do we do on the inhale and what do we do on the exhale, and then stop and find your hold. But when we take the hold, take your hands to the ground. So you might start further up here, find that axial extension of the spine, and fold a little bit at a time each exhale. You can go a little deeper into it. Just the right amount of force, pressing the back of the right leg into the ground, the left foot into the inner right thigh to engage the inner thigh muscles, left knee into the block or the floor. So last breath out. And inhale, come back up. The next posture we do is either your favorite, I call it one of the Brussels sprouts poses. You either love it or you leave it. But it's a great one to help to open the feet. We often see it in yin classes. So we're going to come onto the shins, keep some blocks available or a blanket. We're going to roll the toes underneath us and feel the bottoms of the feet touching the ground just by the toe mounds. And first, just start to rock back a little bit and forward. So we want to open up the soles of the feet. Really important in this posture. And you'll see how far back you can go comfortably and how much weight you can put into the feet. Might feel nice on the spine too to do this. If you want more sensation, then keep the big toes together and the inner heels together. Lots more sensation there. And especially if you know that your Malasana that you practice is the kind where you keep the big toe side of your feet together, here's an opportunity to do that. Otherwise, widen your feet as much as your knees. Then the next time we come back, we're going to stay there. So bring your knees together, hug your inner thighs. If it's too much pressure to put the weight of your pelvis and your torso in your feet, And what you can do, first of all, you can keep your hands on the ground. But what I like to do is take a block or blocks and put them underneath the knees. So this is another option. You're still opening up the feet. You can keep hands to the ground, or maybe now you can take your hands to your thighs. So we're going to be here for about 1 full minute. This is affectionately referred to as toe torture in some classes. See if you can lengthen through your spine now. We'll find we try to cower up, right? Open up. So if it's full weight doesn't do that for you, then use that block underneath your knees. Gently hug the big toe side of your feet together, the inner arches. Your feet are probably talking to you. You can talk right back to them. And slowly come out. We'll release our feet. Come back under our sits bones just briefly. I'll turn towards you. We're going to take the soles of the feet together. First, to stretch your ankles by taking the big toes together and taking the heels away from one another. Drop the knees open. We're going to get ready for Baddha Konasana, but stretch the ankles out for a moment. And then in this Baddha Konasana, we're going to keep the heels further from the base of your spine. So slide your feet a little bit forward. Just make some circles first. So now we want to have the soles of the feet together. Opening up the inner thighs. Keep the spine long as you circle. Again, think of moving from the heart. And see how it feels to have your feet a little bit further away from you. And we'll pause. Draw the heels a little bit closer in. Now we want to create more of that active engagement. So push the soles of the feet together. Feel your inner thighs engaged. So when we come into Malasana, we bring the elbows here and the heart to create the same engagement, but you can just push the feet together. Make those circles again. Might feel more restricted this time, but that's okay. Feel how your feet are working for you and your thighs. Come to your center. Inhale, rise up. Lengthen the spine. Press your sit bones down. Exhale, fold forward from the hip crease. From that lower hinge. Inhale, rise up. And exhale, forward. Once again, if there's too much discomfort, so you can see I'm a teacher. I'm very tight in my hips, and it took me years to accept that it's not muscular. It is actually the design of the bones in my hips. Can't do anything about it, nor do I want to. As you exhale, come forward and find your place where you feel long through your spine. So we're going to keep that axial extension for a moment, lengthening. But this time, just see, does it feel better to rise to root to rise and fold, or to begin to round your spine just a little bit? So let your head drop. Think of your shoulder blades lifting up towards the sky. Which of these is more comfortable for you? More releasing, particularly for the pelvis, the low back, the base of the spine, and the legs. Keeping the legs slightly active by pressing the soles of the feet together. You can also press your outer knees either into the ground or into your blocks. And then a little bit more here. If you're able to get your hands out in front of you, walk your hands forward and lengthen the spine. Just these last few breaths. Press the fingers into the ground. Spread your shoulder blades. Lengthen. Last breath out. Breathe in. Come up. Press the feet together. Hug your thighs to come out of this. Take your legs out long. Just shake them out for a moment. We're going to be transitioning to a standing pose, and you're going to want those 2 blocks at the front of your mat. Come on up however you want. Try not to use your hands if you want to use a little more core. So we're going to take the blocks and we're going to put them at the front of your mat. This is one of my ways I wake up the leg muscles for this pose. So we're going to slide our hands down our thighs, let the knees bend, find your blocks. So we're coming into a half fold right away. We should have had a little opening through the hamstrings and the low back. Push your hands into the blocks so your spine is long. We have that axial extension, so we're not rounding. You want to push hands, draw your tailbone back, crown of the head forward, root your shoulder blades onto your back. So your spine and your torso feel like you're in a plank pose. And we're going to keep just the left foot on the ground. You're going to lift up your right foot so you see you don't want your blocks too far back or forward. You got, just like if you're in a table pose, you've got the blocks right underneath your shoulders. Lifting up that right foot. You're going to inhale, point the toe, reach the thigh. As you exhale, squeeze the right thigh in towards you, squeeze the top of the foot towards the shin, but also bend the left knee. So your inhale, extend through the right leg and the left leg. Exhale, bend the knee, draw in through the top of the foot on the right leg. So extension on the inhale, both legs, even the ankle, flexion, both legs as you breathe out. This is a really good one to prepare your ankle. Find out if you have any restrictions in your calf or in your Achilles. Your weight bearing in that left leg. Keeping the spine long. So as I'm drawing in, I'm trying not to round the back. I'm keeping that spine extended. Your arms are helping to support you. See if you can finish off 3 more of these. Inhale, extension. Exhale, squeeze. Sometimes I think part of the idea behind Malasana is if we do enough, then we just kind of exhaust ourselves and gravity has its way with us. Take that right foot down. Bend both knees, come up to standing. Let's pause and feel. So feel both feet on the ground. Sense the amount of weight in your left leg versus your right leg, the way that the foot touches the ground. Just noticing any differences. Maybe you're breathing differently. Heart beating a little faster. Take your hands back down, bend your knees to find that. So we want to bend the knees so we can get that long spine. If we try to straighten our legs, then our spine is rounded. So bend the knees as much as you need to. Push into the blocks. Weight will transfer into the right leg this time. Take the left leg, extend it out. So if you have a little bend in the right knee, that's okay, but watch that the hip doesn't come forward. So you want to keep the right hip back over the ankle. Sometimes you have to draw the right hip crease back just a little bit. Extend, and then squeeze in. As you squeeze in, draw the top of the foot towards your thin shin and bend your right knee. Inhale into extension, both legs. Feel the backs of the knees open up. Exhale. Feel the backs of the calves open up and the tendons coming down through your ankles. Spine stays long. Just a few more. Really feel it. So we watch too that we don't let all the weight go into the toes and the heels not lifting up, but at the same time, keeping that hip back over the ankle. Last 3. And take it down. Drop the foot down. Our eyes up. I'm going to turn towards the long edge of the mat for the next one and join me in a goddess squat. So this is another one where I'm going to encourage you to try different footprints, meaning if you usually keep your feet closer together or more or less turned out, try a couple different ways. So let's start with our feet just slightly wider than our hips, turn them out. Take your hands to your thighs, feel the hip crease right here. Find your hip crease. As you breathe out, you're going to bend through the hip crease. Just do that a few times. And so what you want to watch for is that your knees aren't falling inward. That means either your toes are turned too far out, your feet are too wide apart. You want to try to direct the knees right over the ankles. And we're going down on an exhale. Take a few, play with that foot position. Do you need to go wider out, closer together? And if that one hip was stickier, I know which one mine is, which one's yours. Honor the stickier hip and take the footprint that works for that grumpy hip. So maybe your left leg can go really wide, like you've been dancing your whole life, and the right leg doesn't want any part of it, right? And then we're going to add a little bit more because we want to start feeling that organic movement of the abdomen and the pelvic floor. So this pose is also great for pelvic floor. You're going to take your hands to your heart center. As you exhale and bend the knees over the ankles, I want you to take your hands and like you're scooping up towards your pelvic floor. So what we feel on the exhalation is the abdomen draws in, so does the pelvic floor. As you inhale, take your hands up, rise up, feel your pelvic floor expand as the belly expands, so you can push out into your belly, push the pelvic floor down towards the floor. As you exhale, take your hands down and around, and imagine gathering up, draw pelvic floor up. Inhale, hug your inner thighs, reach out, push into your feet. Exhale, sit and lift. Just the way you can visualize it in your mind's eye is your inhalation, you're expanding through both arms, both legs, the crown of the head. As you're breathing out, everything is contracting towards the navel center, particularly the bottom of the pelvis. Keep the arches of the feet slightly lifted. Watch that you're not falling in. Take just a few more of these. Reaching up, find the axial extension. And then when you're coming down, we're keeping that axial extension. So we're not rounding. We want to lengthen through the spine, but keep those knees wide. So this last one, let's land in it. Inhale, reach up. Check your feet are where you want them. Exhale, sit down. So as we sit down, take the hands to the heart center for a moment. Press your palms together. Widen your elbows so we want to feel the shoulders open up. But then let's get the legs going. So take your hands to your inner thighs. Gently squeeze your inner thighs into your hands. How does that feel without collapsing into the big toe side of the feet? Now, take your hands to your outer thighs. Gently press your outer thighs into your hands. Can you still feel the rhythm of the breath? Inhale. Pelvic floor and abdomen are expanding. Exhale, they're drawing in and up towards the navel center. Keep your hands on your thighs at your heart center. Take 5 more rounds of breath. So we need that support of inner thighs, pelvic floor moving, maybe heating up a little. Last breath out. Inhale, rise up. And exhale. Hands back down. One more pose we're going to do that I really do think that helps with this, and that's the simplicity of a down dog. But I want you to keep your block nearby, because what we're looking for in the down dog is the long spine and opening up the hamstring. So coming to the top of your mat, pause for a moment. Inhale, rise your arms up, press the heels into the ground, really feel your feet. Exhaling into the forward fold. Here comes the weather. Inhale, come halfway up, use those blocks. There's the long spine we found earlier. Maybe you're bending your knees to find it. That's all okay. Exhale, back down, hands to the ground. Take your legs back. So take your legs back to where you can find a knee plank. So you're going to shift your hips forward until your shoulders are right over your wrists. Draw your navel center up so we're long through the spine. Now I want you to just roll your toes under. There's that toe stretch again. And as you exhale, lift your shins off the ground. Inhale, drop down, long spine. Exhale, just lift the shins up or the knees up off the ground. Just that a few times, you're feeling your core. But watch it, we're not dumping into the low back as we inhale. We're going to keep the long spine, press the arms into the ground. Exhale, lift the knees. Feeling a little core action. We're going to add on to that. So inhale, long spine, tailbone back, crown of the head forward. Exhale, lift the knees. Hold that for a minute. Keep the knees bent. Maybe not a full minute. Inhale, lift the buttocks as high as you can. The pelvis, lift it up, keeping the knees bent. So this is where we get that axial extension through the spine. Long, press the hands into the ground. And then if you want, as you exhale, just let the heels fall, not pushing them down. Again, a great way to stretch the ankles and the back leg line. You can lift one heel or the other. See how that feels. And this pose in its final form also requires that we're open through the arms. So just taking this down dog, find that space. If you prefer to do it on your knees, You can do it here more as a puppy pose, but keep the spine long as opposed to lifting the tailbone, draw the tailbone down and lengthen. So you can do it here too. Roll the toes under though. So we're going to try to take about 10 breaths in the down dog. So again, option to do it here on your knees, keeping long and opening the arms. Or another way to do it is to take blocks. And you can take 1 or 2 blocks. Usually we want to make sure they're stable. And we're going to rest our head on the block. So hands are out. Check to see you're in that forward knee plank. Lift your knees up. There's your core support on your exhale. Lift the pelvis up on an inhale. And then take yourself to where you can rest your forehead on the block. So we're not fully weight bearing in the arms, but we can lengthen the spine and open up the arms. Breathing upside down for another 5 full rounds of breath. Maybe even upside down, you can sense the movement of the abdomen and the pelvic floor. Focus on lengthening the spine. Even if the knees are a little bent, that's okay. Remember, they'll be bent in the squat pose. And just letting the heels drop. Last breath in and out. Come all the way down. So before we work our way to the wall and do our version of the final posture for today, we're going to come onto our backs and do a little bit more of a yin version. So coming all the way down. Start with feet to the floor. And we did one leg at a time. Now we're going to do both. So to come into it actively, point your toes, lengthen your legs as much as you can. Then flex your feet. And as you breathe out, bring both legs towards you, but keep the sacrum on the ground. So we're not letting the buttocks lift up. Keep it long. And then as you exhale, keep those feet drawing towards your shins and take your legs out to the side. So here's our reclining version. You can take your hands to the backs of the thighs or to your feet if you prefer. Another opportunity to play with. Do you like your legs a little wider away from the sides of your body? Do you feel more supported if you gently hug the thighs towards your rib cage? So here's the interesting thing about Malasana, and I'll say it while I'm upside down, but you can picture it in your mind's eye. So it often gets translated to garland pose, which the final version of the pose looks a lot like a garland because we wrap our arms around our shins. But for most of us, that's inaccessible. And the truth is that mala, of course, mala beads we're familiar with, but many will argue that Malasana really means waste products or excrement. So if we think about our position right now and we turn it the other way, we're working with the apana, the downward energy. Apana is what removes all of the waste from our body. And then Ayurveda, we have 3 main forms of waste products or excrement. They come out of our pee-pee, our poo-poo, and our sweat. So this pose is good for those first 2 for sure. Massaging your organs. It's a little bit of the history of the word Malasana. And if you feel in the final pose you think you want to do the big toes together, try that now. Bring the big toes together, hug them. Imagine flattening the feet on the ceiling. And then you can bring your thighs closer to you and wrap your arms around the shins or wherever they go. So you may feel your back lifting up again. Try to lengthen the low back on the ground. Your version. Release that and rock up, and we're going to go and stand at the wall. We're going to be finishing our practice at the wall, and you're going to want to have a chair, or you'll see I have a little stool here 2 blankets if you've got them, or a thick blanket and a rolled yoga mat if you happen to have an extra mat. You actually don't really need your mat for this, so you could roll it up. And some blocks if you have them. So we're going to take our back to the wall and get as much of your back to the wall as comfortable, including the base of your skull. Just take a few breaths there and notice if you can feel the area around your sacrum on the wall. Just put a little bit of pressure right around that sacrum area. Then you're going to take your feet and you're going to walk your feet further from the wall so that your ankles are in front of your hips. In fact, your ankles are probably in front of your knees. You can hold on to the wall with your hands as well. We're just going to start to come down and then slide back up. So you're going to use your leg muscles to do this, sliding up and down. The other thing I want you to do is play with. So we know that in the end, we're trying to keep our toes together, but that may not work because of the way our bones are built. It has nothing to do with muscles. So play with feet together, feet a little wider, turn your toes out more, and find out where you feel strongest and most stable as you slide up and down, keeping the sacrum on the wall. So just playing around with where do you want your feet. Notice when your heels start to lift. And then once we find that position, so I'm going to keep my feet wider and turned out for this first one. We're going to come all the way down. And what you may find when you get down there is we're going to address a couple different things. First of all, the heels lift up. If the heels lift up, you can either take a rolled blanket or that extra rolled yoga mat and put it right underneath your heels. So it's going to give you that extra support. So eventually we want to work our way out of it, but you can keep the weight in your toes where it belongs and not back on your heels. That's one option. Another one is if you know it's your knee joints that are holding you back, then we take a thicker blanket, and it may find you want to do both of these. You take the blanket so that it's right in the backs of the knee creases. And sit down on the blanket. You'll find that will give you a lot more support if you want to roll it up. I also, sometimes if you like something firmer, do the same thing with the yoga mat and put it behind your knees. So play around with that for a moment. We're finding our Malasana. So this is the first option. The other one is we're going to go back to the wall. We're going to want to elongate the spine now. So in elongating the spine, we may find that we need a little more support. So that's where either the blocks can come in. So if we know our feet were here and I'm keeping my sacrum on the wall to keep it honest, if this is as far as I can go or whatever the distance is, you can sit on the blocks, right? Any combination. Because sometimes this is better because we're getting the feet down, we're working, because we don't want to always rely on putting something under the heels. We want those feet muscles to have to do a little work, so you can do it this way. If that's still a little too low, that's where the chair can come in. So if I were to do this on a chair, it'd be the same thing. You can, let's see, I'll turn this way. You can come all the way down, no longer using the wall, but here's your squat. We can stay right here and open up and find that position. If you feel like you can get a little bit higher, then what we do is sit in a chair and bring the feet up. Remember where you want your feet placed. Bring your feet up to whatever height you want. You can put books underneath your feet. So I'm going to show it from this position first, the next part. So what we want to do, if you've got your back on the wall, you want to raise up, lift out of the low back, take an inhalation, reach your arms up. So we want that axial extension of the spine, just like in our down dog. Then we begin to reach forward. So I like to think inhale up, exhale, draw the navel center in, and reach forward. Do that a couple times. So I'm showing a supported version here. I'm going to go back and also show this to the wall. As you exhale, reach forward. So we're keeping that axial extension coming forward from the heart and the navel center as opposed to rounding the spine. So without that, eventually I'll be using that again. Here we are at the wall, taking that squat down. You may have the blanket, you may underneath the knees, but we're going to reach up, keep the sacrum on the wall, and then come forward. So the other way you can use the chair is to grab onto the chair if you are down here. And it's good to do a couple in and out. Find out how far you want to keep your feet so that you can keep your knees in alignment as best you can with the ankles. So if the knees are falling way outside, then you need to widen your feet if they're outside the ankles. If your feet are together or your knees are falling inward, then you know you need to bring your feet in a little bit. So finding that. So now I'm going to do it with the toes together. Sacrum to the wall, sliding down. We keep the arches of the feet lifted, press into the ball mount, keep some weight in the toes. Keep sacrum on the wall, inhale, reach up, and exhale, come forward. So in the final version of the pose, I'm going to give you time to play or to just be still. And it is good if you can start to build up your time. Maybe you start with 10 breaths in the posture, work your way to 20 breaths. So I'm here, and you'll sometimes see it, you mostly see it in yoga classes. I'm going to move this out of the way, with feet wider apart because that's comfortable for most people. And we're here, elbows into the knees, prayer hands. So what this is going to do is it's creating more stability because you're going to create a bit of resistance between the elbows and the knees. You'll feel your inner thighs, your adductor muscles engage, and that can help you lift up taller through the spine. So if you've got the wall, you might even notice you're lengthening all three curves of your spine. So we often see it here where the teacher will tell you to engage through the pelvic floor, through the inner thighs, press into the feet, and rise up through the crown of the head. So here's the interesting part. The final version, and the reason I had you bring your hands forward, we actually round the spine. So if we're able to come into the position where the feet are together, we reach forward and we actually take our arms and wrap them around the front. This is the garland part, right? It's like we're putting something around our own legs. And you can grab the backs of your heels. I'm still using the wall to support the spine, to support the sacrum. I'm going to turn sideways in this. So for those of you that have a lot of flexibility, and I don't quite go into final pose, but we're reaching forward, lengthening, opening up, and the head comes to the floor. If it doesn't come to the floor, you can do what I do, which is put blocks underneath your head. Find that final version. We're going to stay here for 10 rounds of breath. Notice the difference between tension and muscles. Is there something that is active that doesn't need to be? Can you use the stability of your feet and your legs? Let your back and spine relax. Versus compression. And compression is bone on bone. If we're going beyond our comfort zone with compression, that's something we can't change. That's our bone structure. So are your hips where they need to be? Your feet? Your breath will tell you a lot about your success rate of finding the version of the pose that is right for you. Remembering to keep it slightly active, even just by pushing into the ball mount of the big toes. Keeping the arches lifted so we're not falling into the arches of the feet. A little bit of that hugging the thighs towards your body. Having found your completed version of Malasana, take a few more breaths in, feeling the breath, fill the back and spine, the pelvis, breathing out through the legs, down into the feet. And as you're ready to come out of the posture, use your hands however you need to support yourself. Rise up slowly. If you're not near the wall, if you did a different version of the final pose, take yourself to the wall and be sure that you have a couple of blankets and a couple of blocks available. We're going to finish with a Shavasana with our legs up the wall in Malasana. So what I call the restorative version of Malasana. Everybody's favorite, hopefully. And Michael is going to play some music for you. So when you come to the wall, you'll want to bring your hip as close as you can. That's one way to access it. If you're right-handed, right hip, left-handed, left hip. So you want to stay as close to the wall as you can because it's always easier to back away. Take your legs up, keep a soft bend in the knees though, so the hamstrings are relaxed. And then if you want to take a blanket and put it underneath your head just to raise your head up a little bit, you might even make a little neck roll. And we're going to do some movements just to gently release the legs before we go into that final Malasana. So starting with both legs together, as you breathe out, let the heels just sort of drop towards your buttocks, or think of sliding your feet down the wall. And as you breathe in, you can slide them back up and also reach the soles of the feet towards the wall so you feel the fronts of the ankles stretch out. And as you breathe out, slide down. So we just want to lengthen the legs a little bit as we breathe in. Open up the fronts of the ankles. Breathing out, just letting gravity slide the weight of the thighs towards your torso, the calves towards the thighs. One more dropping down, and then next time we're extended. We're going to work one leg at a time. Again, this is just a little counter pose for the squat. As you feel ready, take your right leg and turn the right leg inward just slightly, and then let it fall towards the floor again. So instead of coming straight down, you're just going to do a bit of an internal rotation and then drop the foot down wherever it wants to go. Slide it back up. If you're doing it to your breath again, slide it up on the inhale, rotate, and drop on the exhale. So getting that internal rotation of the thigh. Do a few more with the right leg. And take that up and we'll switch into the left leg. So internally rotating the left leg and dropping it down. And just you'll feel your inner knee fall towards the right knee or towards the wall. Sliding it back up. This is just a feel good. Releasing anything that might have feel like it's still stuck in that squat pose. It's always nice to finish with a counter pose. Let the muscles go the other direction, the bones go the other direction. Last one. And then taking both legs up one more time. We'll prepare for our final Malasana as Michael leads us with some music. So now as you exhale, you're going to externally rotate the thighs. So let them roll out, let the toes roll out, and then let the heels fall towards you. So you'll feel like you're on your pinky toes to start, but we're just finding how far apart our feet want to be. And we're also finding out how far down we want our heels towards the ground. Just moving in and out of it. So this last Malasana should be so easy. It's a dessert pose. And you're just moving in and out, feeling that flexion and extension of your knees, your hips, and your ankles. And where is that end point? So some things that can help you with the end point. If you found that your knees were at all crabby during Malasana, go ahead and take the blanket and put it behind the knees as you did earlier. And you can use that to hold your calves and make a little more space in the backs of the knees as your feet are on the wall. So you can see in this version, I like to keep my feet a little bit wider. You may find it's more comfortable to keep your feet together and let your knees drop out. Play with that for a moment. The other option, which I really enjoy, is you can take the blanket and put it right on the bottom of your pubic bone, all the way down to your pubic bone, and let your thighs fall onto the blanket there. So you've got this little bit of compression in your belly, and then as you allow the weight of your thighs to fall into the blanket, you'll feel more support of the legs onto the pelvis. and also more grounded through your low back. Just breathing in and out. And if you can, see if you can rearrange your breath just slightly to breathe into the abdomen now. Notice how the abdomen rises up as you breathe in, and gently, softly coils back in towards the front of the spine as you breathe out. Your feet are grounded on the wall now. We're still going to focus on that downward energy, that apana. But we're going to bring it right into the pelvic floor area. Think of your tailbone, your sits bones. See if you can locate those in your mind's eye. Once you feel that shape of the pelvic floor, the inner thighs gently opening, just the weight of the legs falling into the torso. It's no longer about the posture and holding the posture. The posture is holding us, so that we can work more into the breath and the subtleties of how the breath helps to sustain that downward energy, the apana, particularly in the root chakra and the Muladhara chakra. If you can feel the movement of your abdomen, the filling and the expansion as you breathe in, and that gentle contraction as you breathe out. Become aware of the pelvic floor, the base of the spine, and see if you can feel that same pattern of movement in the pelvic floor. As you breathe in, there's a gentle expansion in the space in and around your sits bones, the front of the pubis, back of the anus. There's that letting go feeling every breath in. And as you breathe out, a soft, gentle recoil as if gravity is just bringing the pelvic floor back in towards your body. Checking in that the physical position you have landed in is completely comfortable, so that you're more successful making this now a breath practice as opposed to a body practice. Just feeling the breath in the body, or feeling your body through your breath, particularly in the base of the spine, the pelvic floor. Appreciate those complementary opposites, the way that you're able to allow the pelvic floor to expand and stretch. That's the letting go and releasing phase with the Apana Vayu. Thank you, Bodhi. And the breath out is that soft space, not a forced contraction, but a softening inward. Feel the way your sacrum and your low back is completely supported and long and relaxed. The whole spine is in that extension. that perhaps during the practice we had to work for and search for. It's now held and supported by the ground. Any of the leg muscles that we may have recruited during our Malasana practice are now completely relaxed. Feeling the weight of the leg bones falling towards the abdomen. It's just you and your breath, feeling the rhythm of the abdomen and the pelvic floor as they flow in and out together. Something I sometimes add for myself just to appreciate this natural expansion and contraction of the abdomen and the pelvic floor is notice your mouth and your lips. And if you're breathing through your nose, as you breathe in and the abdomen and the pelvic floor expand, just gently open your mouth. And as you breathe out, let the lips softly come back together. No pressure, no force. And imagine the abdomen pelvic floor muscles moving with the same ease as your mouth, gently opening as you breathe in and closing as you breathe out. We'll stay in this space about another minute or so. Just allowing yourself to feel the flow of your breath, the weight of the legs, the length of the spine. And focus on that space, the base of the spine, the pelvis. The quality of earth supporting you fully. Notice your inhale, the inspiration. And begin to use that inhale, that inspiration, to bring yourself back with the eyes still closed. Feel the space of your body, the weight of your body. Maybe even pause at the top of the inhale. Notice the way the stomach and the pelvic floor are expanded and spacious and free. And that coming back into the space of grace as you breathe out, just landing in your bones. When you're ready to start coming out of the posture, on a breath in, just take one leg and begin to slide it up the wall. And a breath out, slide it back down again. Just feeling the extension through your hip, your knee, and your ankle. Just a few times until the foot wants to stay up, the leg wants to stay long. And take the other one, slide it up and down a few times. If your heels were wider apart, you can take them closer together and slide both legs. Be playful. If they were closer together, you can take them wider apart. And then to end our practice, we'll roll to one side or the other, onto your side. Pausing in a curl position. And using your hands, the strength of your arms to come back up. Take whatever position feels best for your physical body, focusing on the groundedness of your pelvis, feeling of your legs, that downward energy. With your hands at your heart center. Thanks for joining me for this Malasana practice, and I do hope that it's a practice that gave you more comfort and variety, so hopefully some successful varieties for you to do if and when you're asked to do this pose in class, or if you enjoy doing it at home. Bring more joy. Peace, joy, love, and light.